You talking about football?
Yeah, Town, NFC North. Then let's talk football.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Headed North, an NFC North podcast, and I am your host, D-Tron. This week in NFC North news, we're talking a couple of different things. We're going to get the show kicked off with Minnesota. They're making some moves. They're being shady on social media. They're signing contracts for their rookies. A lot of stuff happening over there in the Twin Cities. We'll be touching on one topic with Chicago. That's how you can make money week one betting them against Green Bay. We'll talk Green Bay and a write-up that came out of the Milwaukee Journal, which asked the question, can the Green Bay Packers return to being a top offensive unit in 2023? And then lastly, we'll talk the Detroit Lions, who they could potentially sign in free agency, and then what they've done in the offseason and which quarterbacks they're going to play this year, which are going to give them some trouble. All of that and maybe just a little bit more for you listening out there. Thank you for tuning into the show. We're really trying to get the show off the ground. So if you haven't already, please hit the like button, subscribe button if you're on YouTube, leave us a review or leave us some stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We really do appreciate it. Just like our sponsors appreciate you visiting their site. And the sponsor for today, much like the last few weeks, is going to be offrackshop.com. Offrackshop.com is an online thrift store. They have men's and women's clothing, accessories, shoes, and more. So if you haven't already, visit our show notes or the description for YouTube. We have a 15% off code for your next purchase from offrackshop.com. All right, so we are going to get the show kicked off in Minnesota, where they have traded away their star linebacker, Za'Darius Smith, to the Cleveland Browns. It was in the news. It's been probably a couple of months now. Za'Darius Smith was not very happy with his time in Minnesota. Now keep in mind, Za'Darius Smith was only there for 1 year before he demanded a trade out of Minnesota. He was on a 3-year contract. So he made a whole stink about getting out of Minnesota. Which sounds familiar. The Green Bay Packers fans were not very happy with him on his exit from Green Bay, which sort of feels like deja vu. And now if you're the Cleveland Browns, you got to hope that he doesn't come to Cleveland and do the exact same thing. But that's in the rearview mirror now for Minnesota. They got rid of him for some draft picks for the future. What they also did, though, is they freed up some cap space. I didn't think that trading away Za'Darius Smith was a good idea for the team dynamic, but I'm all on board for what they were able to do from a salary cap space. So by letting him go and making that trade official, they went from being last in the league with their salary cap to somewhere in the middle, slightly better than the middle, gaining like $12.5 million worth of available cap. And that comes from sporttrack.com. And then another thing that's developing in Minnesota right now, which if it goes through, is going to increase that salary cap number even more, is some shadiness that Minnesota is doing on social media. So if you've been on their Twitter page, you see that they have removed Dalvin Cook from the banner on their Twitter page, which I know it's social media, so whatever, but it is indicative of what's happening with that organization. You got Justin Jefferson there. You still got Kirk Cousins there. They've put Matson on the banner along with TJ Hawkinson. He hasn't even been there that long. But they removed Dalvin Cook, which points to the idea that him being scrubbed from their social media is only the first step toward them removing him from the team, period. If Dalvin Cook is also let go, and depending on how it works out, whether he's traded or just released after the June release date, they're either going to gain another $23 million or $21 million in cap space. That would be huge. That's giving Minnesota, like $35-ish million to work with in free agency, where they were working with like less than $1 million. It was rough in Minnesota when it comes to free agency, but the move with Za'Darius Smith and this potential move or upcoming move, certainly Dalvin Cook's not going to be there. When you're scrubbing somebody from your social media, you're definitely in breakup stage. It's only one thing left to do, and that's change your relationship status. This isn't Facebook. That was Twitter. Never mind. You get the point, though. They're going to get rid of Dalvin Cook, and then Minnesota is going to be sitting back trying to figure out who is still available in free agency that they're willing to pay so that they can make an impact on that defense, which is going to struggle. You got youth on the back end. You got some holes up front. You get rid of your best linebacker. They've got some holes to fill, but they'll have some cap space now to be able to do something with it. Other news, I mentioned Dalvin Cook already. It sucks too. Like, whoever gets Dalvin Cook is going to get a really good player. Yes, he's been plagued with some injuries recently, but he was coming off of like 4 consecutive Pro Bowls. The guy scores touchdowns. He puts up yards. He's a very powerful downhill runner. This is the kind of guy that someone's going to benefit from having on their team, and it's just apparently not going to be the Minnesota Vikings anymore. And last but not least for Minnesota has finalized all of their rookie contracts, including that with their wide receiver Jordan Addison. They signed Jordan Addison to a 4-year, $13.7 million contract. That $13.7 million is guaranteed for Addison. So no matter what he does from now on, he's at least $13 million richer. And there is a 5th-year option on that contract that he signed with Minnesota as well. The Minnesota Vikings doesn't have to figure out what to do with that 5th-year option until at least that 3rd year of his contract. So that put us somewhere closer to 2026. So that's what's the rundown with Minnesota for today. They moved Za'Darius Smith. They're going to move Dalvin Cook. And they just finished up signing up their rookies from this most recent draft. All right, so next up is Chicago Bears. And I've only got one topic for the Chicago Bears fans that are listening to this podcast. I hope you've got a nice chunk of money set aside for week 1, because you should be taking all of that available cash that you got. Keep in mind, as an asterisk, I am not a financial advisor. Don't take my advice and end up broke betting on this game and then blame me, because I'm not reimbursing anybody. But what I'm saying is, if you had some available capital just sitting around and you wanted to bet on a game, Green Bay versus Chicago. Right now, MGM has an early line out for the Chicago Bears being 2.5-point favorites to win this game. I think that is a lock. Justin Fields is getting ready to go bonkers in this game. This is the first time since, I don't know, like '01 that they haven't faced Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre when they play the Green Bay Packers. A change of scenery, a change of facing at quarterback. They haven't beat Green Bay since 2018. That's 8 consecutive losses that they got against the Green Bay Packers. You know Chicago is so ready to get over this hump that it's ridiculous. There's no way that they come out week 1 with all of the improvements that they've made and lose that game. There's no way possible. Quote me when I say Green Bay is going to lose that game. And if they don't lose that game, I don't know. I may hang it up. I may, turn the show off after week 1 if Green Bay comes out and beats the Chicago Bears. I feel very confident in them. So confident that I say, I'm probably going to bet that game. And I know, again, not giving you betting advice because I don't want to be responsible for your wins and or your losses. But I'm just saying, if I were a betting man, and I am, I'd be taking the Chicago Bears over the Green Bay Packers. Again, they are a 2.5-point favorite, very early odds in the favor of the Chicago Bears. But again, they haven't beat Green Bay since 2018. It's 8 straight losses, give or take. And there's going to be a whole lot of excitement around this game. Certainly a key matchup and one that's going to have real ramifications for the NFC North. So definitely going to be tuned in week 1 when Green Bay plays Chicago. But just know, 2.5-point favorites for Chicago, I'd take that bet. Green Bay. Speaking of Green Bay, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel recently wrote, can the Green Bay Packers return to being a top offense in the NFL with Jordan Love? You know what? I feel like that's an unfair question. I mean, first, the answer is no. They're not going to be a top, at least not this year. They're not going to be a top NFL offense. I mean, they're not even going to be a top NFC offense. I don't know how you expect them to then somehow leap up to compete with the Eagles and the Chiefs of the world. They are very far removed from being a top offense. But the future is not as dim as I like to paint it for the Green Bay Packers. Sure, they are working with a first-time starting quarterback, Jordan Love, and a pair of second-year receivers. But they've got two very solid running backs that they don't have any contract disputes right now with. So they got a really good running core. And depending on what source you look up, their offensive line was ranked either somewhere between 3rd or 7th in the whole NFL for their production last year. So if you think about it, half of that offense is already pretty good, the offensive line and your running backs. But the real question is the guy who touches the ball every time you snap it. And that's that quarterback. If he and those receivers in their second year can link up and become consistent, then maybe all is not lost for Jordan Love. They're certainly not jumping to the top of anybody's offensive rankings, I don't believe. But he is not going to then be a lost cause, and I certainly think he then gets a new contract if they're able to really put it together. But losing a top wide receiver like Allen Lazard, the person that led your squad, you lose Tunyon, you lose a lot of offensive weapons. You add a new tight end, a rookie tight end. Now you've got to get him acclimated to the NFL. You also got getting him acclimated to the playbook, getting him on the same page with Jordan Love and the receivers. There's a lot there. So I think that while I appreciate what the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is doing, trying to encourage that team to have an optimistic outlook, I would say that they are at least 3 years out from being a contending offense for anything positive. 3 years out. That's Jordan Love getting 3 solid years under his belt as a starter, because I do believe that they're going to end up re-signing him once this 1-year deal that they did for less money is done. I think they're going to give him a contract, at least a 3-year contract to see what he can do in the future. But are they going to be a top offense? Methinks not. And I wouldn't put not a dollar on that bet if I were a betting man, which I am. So that is what we got going on in Green Bay. And then last but not least are my Detroit Lions. Now, I saw a write-up recently here, and this might have been within the last day or so. It might have been from Fansided, it might have been from Bleacher, not sure which one. But someone said that they think that a good free agent pickup for the Detroit Lions would be Jadeveon Clowney. First off, stop it. There's absolutely no way that the Detroit Lions should go and pick up Jadeveon Clowney. That is trouble waiting to happen. Doesn't really seem like he's all that amazing of a teammate. Bust chucking some of the coaching staff. Definitely not giving it his all play to play every down. And when you talk about defensive players that give it their all and coaches that expect you to give it your all, that's Dan Campbell. And so if you go out and get Jadeveon Clowney, you are really taking a flyer on someone who has not proven in any recent years that he is anything like invested in the team's success. He seems like a him kind of guy and not a us kind of guy. And honestly, if I might say this, he's an underachiever for where he was drafted. He had one good play in college when he knocked that running back from the University of Michigan's helmet off in the backfield. That got him the number 1 draft. I think he was drafted number 1. That got him that. He should have never gone that high, and he's never lived up to that kind of hype since he's been in the NFL. There's no way Detroit should add him to the roster. I don't care what potential upside he might have. I don't care what we didn't do from a defensive edge rush position in the draft. We can use somebody else that we already have on our team and move them out to the edge. The Frank Kaminsky's of the world, or somebody who is more of a Swiss Army knife. Someone other than Jadeveon Clowney. I was thrown all the way off when I read that. I was like, there's no way that the Lions would do that and risk blowing up the chemistry that they have been meshing together, all of these pieces. You don't want to go and drop that grenade and turn around and walk off on your defense. Especially when you have gone and got people like Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, C.J. Gardner. You pick up David Montgomery. You re-sign Anzalone and Kaminsky, which are really strong pieces, really good team fits. And then you go out and draft Gibbs, which TBD, don't know what he's going to do. But Brian Branch and Jack Campbell, who seem like solid additions to that defense, don't ruin it with a Jadeveon Clowney pickup. Like, I just don't. Yeah, let's just not do that. And that's really all I gotta say on that. I just hope that rumor is nothing but a rumor, and he stays wherever he is at right now. No hate on him personally, despite how it might sound. I just don't want him on the Detroit Lions. And we're going to close out the show by talking about something that also relates to that, which is the quarterbacks that the Lions will face in 2023. Now, the defense that the Lions have started to put together and improved in this offseason, they're going to need every bit of it. Because running down who the Lions play, they've got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Jimmy G, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, Desmond Ridder, and Baker Mayfield. Many of those people can get out of the pocket. Some of those players that I just named off are elite. And then there's a couple who are just hanging around in the middle. There are going to be several weeks where the Detroit Lions are going to need to go down to down, whistle to whistle, applying pressure on quarterbacks who have shown that they can win. Many of those quarterbacks are winners. I just know that the defense that they've put together is the kind of defense that they can get after some of these quarterbacks, but don't give me someone who is not trying to give me their all, i.e., I wrap this back to my original topic. Do not sign Jadeveon Clowney. And on that note, I am getting out of here. This is the Headed North podcast. I am your host, D-Tron, and if you guys are here still, I just want you to know I appreciate you. I really do. From the bottom of my Detroit Lion blue heart, I appreciate you still listening to the show right now. And if you come back, which I hope you do, make sure you got your bags packed because we are headed north. I'm D-Tron. Peace. You talking about football?
Yeah, Upper Town, NFC, North. Then let's talk football.